PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Being a woman is a lot. Ollie supports you and yours with expert solutions for every age and life stage. They just launched 2 new products exclusively at Walmart. Period Hero combats bloat, mood swings, and more during PMS. And Balance Perimeno to support hormonal balance, mood, and metabolism during perimenopause. Grab yours at ollie.com.
Ollie!
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the state vice chair of the Republican Party, as well as the county chair of the Suffolk County Party. And Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. And I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Welcome back to the show. We're going to have in a little while, hopefully phoning in from Washington, Lee Zeldin, the administrator for the United States Environmental Protection Agency, who's making history and saving our energy independence, along with Doug Burgum, the Secretary of Interior, and Secretary Wright of Energy. And it's going to be a very interesting program. Jesse and Eric and I know Lee very, very well. We all have personal connections to him. He's a brilliant guy, a great lawyer, great public servant, former member of Congress. And we'll be talking to Lee Zeldin in a little while. Gentlemen, I want to begin the show by talking about the L.A. riots. Very troubling situation here. What we really do have here is an insurrection against the laws and the government of the United States. And I don't use that word loosely. It's an insurrection because they're doing everything they can to delay and deter and to stop the effectuation of United States immigration laws. This has gone on because of sanctuary cities. Why sanctuary cities? Because if there weren't sanctuary cities, these people would be in lockups and detainers, and they could be removed quietly and nicely by the ICE personnel out of these lockups and detainers, and you wouldn't have to go into housing projects or schools or churches or retail businesses. You could just pick them up where they were being detained properly under the law. But with this fraudulent, unconstitutional, deranged syndrome of sanctuary cities and states, this is what's caused it. Now, all this is organized. Anyone who believes that this is spontaneous is a fool. There's a great article in the New York Post on Thursday of this week, which specifically lays out, written by Mike Gonzalez, specifically lays out all the funding and organization structures. And there is a far left radical Marxists and communists behind this. There's also foreign money coming in from various nations. All of this is to undermine the integrity and the solidity of the United States of America. It's calculated. There's nothing spontaneous about this. It's one false grievance after another. They're just looking for an excuse to riot and to tear down this country and create division. Eric, your thoughts?
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just to pick up on your very last point, I think you will find a tremendous amount of crossover and inbreeding between the people who are rioting today, the people who are funding the rioting today, and the people who are underwriting and fighting on our college campuses in terms of pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, kill the Jew protesters. The same funds, same people, same agenda. But basically it's the same strategy. The strategy from the radical progressive left is, if we don't win, we're going to riot. So you better let us win. We're going to intimidate you. Okay, we lost, so we will riot. And then when the governor of California does absolutely nothing to quell the riots, President Trump steps in, and to his credit, tries to put down the riots, the insurrection, and then the refrain is, "You made us do it. You're driving us into chaos. So if you don't stop us, we'll riot, and if you do try to stop us, we'll blame you for rioting." So the short answer is you have to stop the riots. The president has nationalized federalized the National Guard, and I support him in doing that. This is not something unique. If we will remember, President Eisenhower did it in Arkansas. When the governor of Arkansas would not allow, in the 1950s, when the governor of Arkansas would stand in the schoolhouse door to prevent blacks from coming in to getting educated in public schools after the Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus Board of Ed, separate but equal is not equal. It's not America. So this has a tradition. It's perfectly legal for what President Trump is doing. And we also remember what happened in the 2020 riots during the Black Lives Matter stuff. And the president has learned his lesson. He can't allow this stuff to get out of control. He can't allow these riots to get out of control because they're fester. You had Governor Walz of Minnesota, who did absolutely nothing during the 2020 riots. And then when he was running for vice president, he said, yeah, maybe I should have done a little bit more. But now what's motivating Governor Newsom to make the exact same quote-unquote mistake? And I think it is a mistake, but he's running for president. This is the beginning of the Governor Newsom for Democratic president, the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. He doesn't want to alienate the radical progressive left, which is ascendant in the Democratic Party. So he refused to call out the National Guard. He refused to protect the LAPD. He refused to protect the neighborhoods that were being burnt and taxis being destroyed. I mean, how you're helping the American people by destroying neighborhoods is beyond me. And for what cause? So that people who are here illegally, who have committed crimes while they're here, can't be deported. That's your agenda? But the whole point is, since Trump wants it, we lost. This is our answer. But it can't be the answer. The answer is law being lawful, and the answer is following the law. And if you want to protest, be my guest. The First Amendment guarantees you the right to peacefully protest within reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. And the other thing that this has in common with the Jew haters on our college campuses is that the people in charge aren't enforcing the rules. They're finding exceptions to allow these people to riot and intimidate their fellow Americans. And that just can't happen. The one place where I may part company with the president, however, is I do not support bringing out the Marines for crowd control. That is not their mission. That is not what they are brought out to. That's not what they're trained to do. The Marine version of crowd control is killing the enemy. They are trained to escalate, not de-escalate. So the National Guard, it does have specific training in trying to bring crowds under control. Unless there's a real, is it an insurrection? I say it has characteristics of an insurrection, but I don't think it rises to the level that we're overthrowing the American government. I don't know that bringing out the Marines is the right idea. I think that runs the risk both of something going wrong and there being a real significant problem where we can avoid it. And it also gives ammunition to these crazies on the left to say, look, Trump is overreacting. He's bringing out the Marines. Just look how crazy he is. I think he can accomplish what he wants to do by federalizing the National Guard, bringing these riots under control, and showing Newsom for who he is. Some contemptible guy who's trying to take advantage of a situation for his own personal political needs, and he's prepared to allow the Los Angeles, second largest city in the country, to be burned to the ground.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Gentlemen, I think we're unanimous in this. I think that I agree that the same funding mechanism, this is not organic. This is funded by the same groups that are funding anti-Semitism in our colleges. They funded Antifa and Black Lives Matters in 2020. I think what they're facing differently is that someone is enforcing the law. Someone is enforcing the rules here. I think President Trump has made it very clear that violent protests will not be tolerated, and an injection because of politics at the expense of public safety has no place in our neighborhoods. We can't let our American cities be held hostage again. We went through that in 2020. We allowed that move to move forward. We didn't act as a country, as government, swiftly enough to do that. It's not right to turn our streets into war zones and businesses to be destroyed, families living in fear. And these were all enabled by failed democratic leadership and policies. And you know what? Honestly, Tom Homan, in dealing with the county executives here on Long Island and throughout New York, what he has said is he has wanted to work with our local governments to first go after those illegal aliens that have criminal records in our jails. But because there's cooperation in governments here, like in Suffolk County with Ed Romaine, and in Nassau County with Bruce Blakeman, and other counties throughout the state of New York, Republican counties, that has been working positively. However, when you have sanctuary states and cities that prevent you from doing that, that's when Tom Homan needs to double down and deploy more ICE officials, more ICE officers at a higher standard, at a higher number of personnel, and go into these communities to go basically, flush them out. And other people get caught up in that. Governor Newsom and the far left Democrats have chosen chaos over safety, public safety, and the criminals over cops, and the illegal migrants over law-abiding citizens. President Trump and the government is now saying that is not going to happen. And you know what? I'm not surprised. Kathy Hochul, at the recording of this show, is up in Capitol Hill trying to defend the sanctuary cities policy here and the sanctuary state policies here in the state of New York. And she's being embarrassed, and her policies are being shown to be disastrous for the average American, average New Yorker by the Republican committee that's holding these issues. And the other group I take issue with is the mainstream media and these national Democratic leaders who stand and gaslight and lie to the American people when they say these are nothing more than peaceful protests. And then they double down and say that we should have more of these protests and incite more violence. The images of violence and destruction and anarchy from Los Angeles are not peaceful protests, and as the Democrats across the country try to spin it. A picture or a video speaks 1,000 words, and the people will not be fooled again. And I credit President Donald Trump for taking immediate steps and not waiting for an inept, negligent blue state governor that wants to appease the far left wing of his party so he can become president.
Let's be clear.
Rich, just one point. I happen to have had the opportunity. I was just standing around, and there was a C-SPAN televising the exact hearing that Jesse was referring to. Right. I happened to have watched Lee Stefanik's, I guess call it a cross-examination or questioning of Governor Hochul on this issue. I encourage our listeners to Google it, YouTube it. It is fantastic. It really shows Hochul for who she is.
Well, Hochul's not the only one. You also have Pritzker in Illinois. You have Walls.
I didn't see that one. I just happened to see the cross-examination of Hochul.
But the commonality is that these people are not fulfilling their obligations to protect and defend their people in the states where they're governors. I just want to make this one legal point to Jesse and to Eric and to our audience. The President of the United States is not obligated to get the permission either of a mayor or of a governor. It's his obligation under the United States Constitution, under federal laws, to enforce the laws. He does not need their permission to send in the National Guard. That's very, very important because people saying he's acting unconstitutionally and illegally and he's violating the law, that's a lie.
100% right. 100% right.
They're just lying.
Who's violating the law and who's violating their oath is those Democratic leaders who's saying that these are peaceful protests and Governor Newsom. That's
exactly right. And I think the point about Newsom using this as a vehicle to try to redeem his political reputation in his own party and to make himself a viable candidate for the Democratic Party in 2028 for the presidency is what this is all about. But I'll tell you something that's particularly troubling to me. Why are the Democratic parties, in large measure with no significant exceptions, defending this lawlessness? Why are they defending the removal of illegal migrants who are threats to the public safety of our citizens? They are picking up rapists, murderers, drug dealers, human traffickers. They are not picking up Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. These are dangerous people. Do they really want to have them in our midst? These are monsters in our midst who never should have been here. Now, why are they here? Because of the failure of the Biden administration, Biden himself, the people around him, Mayorkas particularly, the Homeland Secretary. They did nothing to protect and defend this country. To the contrary, they flooded us with illegal migrants who are in violation of federal laws in terms of the process. When Biden rescinded on his first day all of the protective measures that President Trump in his first term had put into place, That was the open door, literally and figuratively, to this disaster we're seeing. Everything works together. Sanctuary cities, open door policy, failure to enforce the immigration law, and the obligation to protect and defend. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be back in a few moments for the second segment of Let the Record Show. Please stay tuned.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. At this time, we're honored and privileged to have a good friend of Chairman Garcia, good friend of Eric Levine's, and a good friend of mine, Lee Zeldin, now the Administrator for the United States Environmental Protection Agency, long-term congressman out on Long Island. In fact, my congressman, former state senator, great candidate for the governorship of the state of New York. Lee, welcome to Let the Record Show.
It's great to be with you guys.
Mr. Chairman.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at StitchFix.com.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Mr. Administrator, it's great to talk with you again, and you and your family, I hope, are doing well. Let me just say that not only is he a friend to all three of us, he's a friend to every New Yorker here. Let's not forget that it's because of Lee Zeldin, widely regarded, that the Republicans captured the House in 2022 and continue to keep that momentum going through the 24 elections. But Mr. Administrator, you're in a new role now, and I should really say, I was going to refer to you as Suffolk's favorite son, but you're really Long Island and New York's favorite son. In your new position as Administrator of the EPA, there's this new, I want to tack first to unleashing energy dominance, because the president aptly tapped you and Governor Burgum and the Energy Department to really come together to reverse the failures of the previous administration, the Biden administration, that really just handcuffed the ability for us to be energy independent again, as it was during the first Trump administration. And your role in the Energy Dominance Committee is one that's really going to reduce inflation, spur our economy, and truly, from a national security point of view, allow us to be energy independent, not dependent on any of our allies completely, or definitely any of our enemies for energy.
President Trump's leadership started the National Energy Dominance Council shortly after President Trump was inaugurated this year. And as you pointed out, working with Secretary Burgum and Secretary Wright and some other agencies that have equities with these important issues, we're all working together collaboratively. Instead of agencies siloed, just focusing on their own work, not finding efficiencies, not communicating well, this approach is so much more effective. Last week, I was in Alaska all week with Secretaries Burgum and Wright, where there is an incredible opportunity to unleash energy dominance and prosperity for Alaska and this country. There were many other countries that were there represented. They're interested in helping to access these sources of energy out of Alaska. There's a desire to build a many 100-mile-long natural gas pipeline. There currently is a many hundreds-of-mile-long pipeline for oil. Alaska is looking for it. They're hungry for it, and the opportunities are abundant. In the Northeast, many years ago, there was a push by Williams to build the Constitution Pipeline and Nessie Pipeline to transmit natural gas. New York stopped it. Well, now there's a hunger to be able to bring that back. Whether we're talking pipelines, we're talking about the coal industry, natural gas, rare earth material, domestic manufacturing, there is so much opportunity here. And for anyone who cares about the environment, it's important to point out that we tap into our resources better than so many other countries do. If you care about national security, you care about the economy, we have to unleash American energy dominance. So I'm loving the path that we're on. The House passed the One Big Beautiful Bill that has many components of it that help with this effort. The bill's now in the Senate. We need to get this bill over the finish line, and Americans will benefit from more affordable energy, more access to U.S. energy. We'll see the Strategic Petroleum Reserve refilled. The opportunities are limitless if we're smart about being aggressive with urgency to tap into what are our resources that so many Americans have been trying for so long to be able to take advantage of.
Eric.
So, Lee, thank you for joining us. So one of the things we always hear about as Republicans is the deep state. I'm just curious, when you took over the EPA, how cooperative you found the staff, how competent you found the staff, their willingness to carry out the president's and your mandates and instructions, whether or not you met resistance. What would you tell the American people about the staff at the EPA? Largely, the staff at the EPA is filled with many people who understand that elections sometimes don't go your way. The candidate that you voted for may not win. There are people who work at the EPA who voted for President Trump. It's possible that most didn't. But most of the employees at EPA understand that that's what happens. If you want to spend 20, 30, 40 years at an agency like EPA, if you want to make a career here working for the federal government, sometimes it's going to happen. And they get it. They've been implementing the president's agenda, and we have already launched what would add up to, when we're all said and done, the largest deregulatory action in the history of the country. More deregulation in one agency in 1 year than entire federal governments have done across all agencies across entire presidencies. Now, there's exceptions. There are people who want to undercut the agenda, and we deal with it. We have to deal with it, and we do it quickly whenever it emerges. So it's not universally a situation where we come in and every single person gets it and is hungry to implement the mission. We have people who make themselves the exception, and we're happy to deal with it. Well, so I would ask you, when you say the mission, two questions. How would you define the mission? And secondly, obviously one of the charges from the president is to be fiscally responsible, help our budget. So what would you define as our mission, and how are you doing it in a way to help to trim the budget in a fiscally responsible way?
The core mission at EPA is protecting human health and the environment. At the Trump EPA, we have 5 pillars that President Trump campaigned on last year, that the American public voted for, that the American public demands. We're powering the Great American Comeback. Pillar 1, clean air, land, and water for all Americans. 2, unleash energy dominance. 3, advancing cooperative federalism and permitting reform. Pillar 4, making America the AI capital of the world. And Pillar 5, bringing back and protecting American auto jobs. Why are we pursuing all 5 pillars? Because the American public is demanding it. We will not ever lose sight on what happened last November, that voice of the American people, and how important these issues are to them. We choose, at the Trump EPA, protecting the environment and growing the economy. There was this false binary choice being presented at the Biden EPA, at the Obama EPA before that, where we would have to pick and choose one or the other. You cannot protect the environment and grow the economy, was their mentality, and it was the wrong one. And by choosing both, that allows us to deliver on the Trump mandate that the American public voted for.
Well, Lee, I'll tell you what troubles me. And for example, and you know this, having been a state legislator, a state senator, and member of Congress and gubernatorial candidate. You have this legislation that comes out of Albany and in New York City, out of the New York City Council, which embraces, in essence, a secular religion of Green New Dealism. And what they say is you have to have these mandates that everything has to be electrified by a certain time. And yet the infrastructure is not there to do it. The fact is that the costs will be overwhelmingly. You have New York people fleeing New York because it's unaffordable. And people are going to be cold in the winter and hot in the summer because the grid will not sustain this. When your view and that of Governor Burkham, now Secretary Burkham, and Secretary Wright, is that you have to have diverse energy sources and not an obsession with wind and solar. So how do you combat this obsession of the secular religion?
Well, as you're pointing out in highlighting one of the bluest ideological states being run in Albany, with New York pursuing all sorts of policies that have really suffocated our economy and have restricted all sorts of amazing opportunities that would have helped the state prosper. You look across the map at purple states and red states, and you see a very wide range of philosophies of how to approach this topic that you bring up. So in New York, they've banned the gas hookups on new construction, started in the city. Now it's statewide. They won't allow the safe extraction of natural gas. They're not approving new pipelines. As you pointed out, they have these years ahead, these climate goals that are unobtainable. It's known to be unobtainable. And the only way to try to hit these goals, which will not be met, is to cause extreme economic pain for the people who can least afford it. And they're trying to ban the sale of gas-powered vehicles. And we're just starting to scratch the surface of what is the New York energy policy with this one-party rule up in Albany. And it's wrong. And it's very much in contrast to what a lot of New Yorkers want. And it's in contrast to what most of America wants. When we talk about advancing cooperative federalism here, we are looking to partner with states. We want to figure out how to help states unleash energy dominance. We want to be able to help states deliver clean air, land, and water for their residents. We don't subscribe to that idea that we have to strangulate the economy. And right now, New York finds itself in this race to the bottom with California, with the one-party Democrat rule enacting policies that have these two states leading the country in outmigration. And the reason why they're leaving is related to economic opportunities elsewhere, people feeling like their money will go further somewhere else, people feeling safer elsewhere, and people feeling like there'll be more freedom if they're living life in some other part of the country. And that's why these two states continue to battle for what is a leadership role that neither should strive for, the state that is number one in outmigration. The reason is obvious, but unfortunately there are a lot of people who are in power who want to ignore the amount of people leaving and the reasons why they're leaving, and they lack the motivation to do something about it, because ultimately at the end of the day what they care about is just staying in power and whatever means to that end of retaining their title, their perks, their benefits. They are all for doing whatever they need to just stay there. Well, I would argue that the best way to lead a state like New York is to understand that this moment calls for, instead of looking backwards at the policies that have failed of the last couple of decades, is to start realizing that people are leaving, and it's not too late to turn things around in a state like New York. And it's not too late to turn things around. And I'll say President Trump, as a former New Yorker, myself as a New Yorker, Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce, who's a New Yorker, and others in this administration who care about the future of New York, we stand ready on a moment's notice. As soon as New York says they want to partner with us to be able to do good things, great things to turn things around, there will be no better friend than President Trump in this administration. We stand ready, but unfortunately it seems like New York continues to insist on heading in the wrong direction with the folks up in Albany.
Jesse.
Lee, before I piggyback on Eric's question, I wanted to just jump on that one issue. We saw that there seems to be in the state of New York, either I guess from demand or just outright we need the power, that the state of New York is now looking to maybe at least review the permits of the Constitution Pipeline. Is that a step in the right direction?
That would be brilliant for New York to look at what is a moment where a company is willing to build a pipeline that is going to transport natural gas through the state. New England is desperate for access to natural gas. New England needs Constitution Pipeline. And I remember sitting in the House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing, and John Kerry, he'd just become the climate czar. President Biden was just sworn in as president, and a colleague on the Republican side of the aisle posed a question. It was a multiple choice question to John Kerry of what the safest way was to transport energy, and he mentioned pipelines and trucks and trains, gave him a whole bunch of different options without missing a beat. John Kerry, the climate czar, says pipeline. Now, if we all are willing to accept just how smart it is to have more pipelines in this country, then why are we playing along with activist groups that fundraise to stop these projects? Like their existence is based off of their ability to prevent this progress. And it's the same people, by the way, who will set fire to electric vehicles. Now, we all know the irony. We scratch our head. Well, that doesn't sound like that's very safe. The people who want to stop pipelines, well, how are you going to transport this energy if you won't allow a pipeline? And also ignoring the fact that emissions are down over the last 20 years, that innovation is up, that we have been able to pursue so much advancements in the sector. This is in the best interest of the United States for national security reasons, for the environment, as I mentioned earlier, for economic benefits, and so much more. So if New York says they are all in without hesitation, that is something that very enthusiastically I stand ready to assist to do my part at EPA.
Eric.
Now, I'm sorry, let me just jump. My question to follow up on Eric's. When you first got to the EPA after your confirmation, you released this review of its funding, and you found initially about $20 billion in wasteful spending, a lot going to politically motivated or involved NGOs or non-government organizations. One of them headed up by Stacey Abrams, a political operative, a Democrat political operative who was run for the first person that truly did not accept the results of an election when she ran for governor and lost, and many more. How is your review going from that point forward to find more waste, fraud, and abuse?
I have now canceled over $22 billion worth of grants at EPA. Our annual operating budget is around $10 billion. in my first 100 days as administrator, I've canceled over twice the size of our annual operating budget. And we have a zero tolerance policy at EPA against any waste and abuse. And we owe it to the American taxpayer to put ourselves in a position that we can answer for the money that comes through EPA, that we ensure that we have proper oversight, that we don't send out money based off of self-dealing and conflicts of interest and sending money to unqualified recipients. And as you pointed out, there was this Stacey Abrams-linked NGO that received $2 billion. They only received $100 in 2023, and then they got $2 billion in 2024. Their grant agreement gave them 90 days to complete a training called How to Develop a Budget. The Biden EPA, when awarding the grant, they decided that this NGO had all sorts of different questionable aspects, yet they still received the money. They didn't exist. They didn't make any money. Then all of a sudden they had a CEO making over $800,000, a COO making $450,000, 22 people making over $150,000, and it was all a pass-through entity. It's not even like they were delivering direct remediation of environmental concerns. And in some cases, in many cases, the money's going through additional pass-through entities and then going through further pass-through entities. And there was $20 billion in the second half of 2024 parked at an outside bank to give to 8 prime recipients. EPA was a party to those account control agreements, but they were all pass-throughs. And once the money goes out of those prime recipients, EPA is not a party to the account control agreements with the subrecipients. This whole thing, you might say, oh gosh, this was reckless, or this was ignorant or naive. They didn't know what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. This whole thing was by design. They got caught. We came in. We've stopped it, and we're proud of it. And this is what we promised to the American people. It's what President Trump campaigned on, and we're going to continue to work hard to implement the zero tolerance policy for any waste and abuse.
Eric, we only have about a couple of minutes for the last question, then a sign-off with EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin.
So one of the things you referenced before was saving the auto industry. And obviously that's critically important. The auto industry has been a backbone of American economy for years. Could you tell our listeners exactly what it means what the EPA is doing, exactly what it means to be saving the auto industry? I don't think people really understand the connection.
I'll give you a great example. Just this week, President Trump signed 3 Congressional Review Act bills that just passed through Congress that reversed the Biden EPA waivers given to the state of California that California used to create its electric vehicle mandate. California wants to move to 100% electric vehicles. Most of California doesn't even want to doesn't want to own an electric vehicle, but California did it anyway. And a whole bunch of other states have been following California. And it creates a big issue that you have manufacturers having to deal with multiple rules all across the entire country rather than having one framework to operate off of. As a result of these policies, we are going to be able to bring down the costs of vehicles. We'll make it easier for manufacturers to do business in the U.S. There's a lot going on to increase investment of these car manufacturers, these vehicle manufacturers here in the United States. This is something that was a very important next step. President Trump enthusiastically signed all 3 resolutions. I was there on Thursday along with other members of the cabinet, Speaker Johnson, leadership in the House and the Senate, who all worked very hard to be able to get this done. So the Biden EPA waivers to California are now dead, thanks to our efforts working with Congress and, of course, working with President Trump.
So, Lee Zeldin, our good friend, EPA Administrator, former member of Congress from New York.
What if an appliance emergency didn't have to be? If your appliances suddenly decided they were done, don't stress. Best Buy has you covered with a wide variety of major appliances from trusted brands, in stock and available now. So you don't have to worry about laundry piling up, refilling the fridge, or that big dinner party you're hosting. Because Best Buy has the knowledge and expertise to get you the right appliance for your home. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
When you're separating from the military, no one tells you how hard it can be to get your civilian life up to speed. But with VA benefits, it doesn't have to be. From the VA home loan requiring no down payment, to the GI Bill covering tuition, books, and cost of living, to VA healthcare offering top-ranked, low-cost care designed specifically for veterans. All the support you need is at VA. I'm here telling every veteran because I wish someone had told me. Get what you earned. Visit choose.va.gov.
Not all veterans are eligible for the type or amount of benefits mentioned here.
Out having fun, but the background noise makes hearing impossible? Your friend just cracked a joke, but you completely missed it.
And then, immediately ordered tacos.
Discover Nuance Audio, the new invisible hearing solution that's built into your glasses. Discreet, comfortable, and easy to use. Nuance Audio glasses help you hear better and reduce annoying background noise so you can focus on the conversations that matter. Find a store near you at nuanceaudio.com.
A man of great intellectual capacity, great personal courage, a man who's leading us into the future and protecting and defending America. On behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, we want to thank you for being here on Let the Record Show. Keep up the good work. It's absolutely essential. We have energy independence, and you're the one to lead this charge along with Secretary Burgum and Secretary Wright. Thank you very much for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you all. It was great to be with you, and I look forward to talking again soon.
We'll be right back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia and Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in but a few moments.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse's the county chair of the Suffolk Republican Party and the vice chair of the New York State Party. With us is our good friend, esteemed colleague, co-host, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We just had a great interview with the United States Environmental Protection Agency administrator. And by the way, we didn't mention on this segment, but our audience should know that the EPA administrator has cabinet rank. So even though you don't call him secretary of EPA, he's a cabinet rank. He has the same rank as the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense or the Attorney General. And we're lucky to have Lee Zeldin, first-rate mind, a man of real courage and ability, and a good friend to Jesse's and Eric's and mine. So, switching gears, gentlemen. 2 weeks, we're going to have a mayoral primary in New York City. And you have, 7 or 8 or 9 candidates, God knows how many, in a ranked choice voting system, which is a very problematic system. And recent polling has shown former Governor Cuomo and an assemblyman from Queens, Zoran Mamdani, neck and neck, and the most recent one as of last night and this morning, saying that this radical Democratic socialist, this pro-Hamas advocate, is leading Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of the state of New York, in this ranked choice voting. I think a choice of the Democratic Party to allow this person to be the official candidate of the Democratic Party of New York is dangerous for the Democratic Party because I think it's suicidal. I think they have totally repudiated any voice of reason, moderation, and human decency if this is the person who becomes a Democratic nominee. So I think it'd help bring the Democratic Party into extinction with showing it has no moral compass. And I think it's dangerous, more importantly, it's dangerous to the survival of the city of New York because it will drive out some of the most productive people in the city. You could virtually have a civil war in the city of New York with radical extremists having control of a budget, which I think is about $114 billion a year, control of the police force, the fire force, social services. It's an awful choice that we have. You don't like Andrew Cuomo? That's too bad. You have to vote for, in my humble opinion, you have to vote for Cuomo as a single vote, a bullet vote in this Democratic primary. The idea of having this Mamdani character, a spoiled trust fund billionaire's son, and with his slick Hollywood commercials where he goes out there and plays pretty boy and calm and quality character acting, he is a fraud. He's 32 years old. He's never had a real job in his entire life. He's never done anything except support radical Islamist extremists and want to tax and spend this city of New York, the state of New York, and this country into oblivion. Eric, your thoughts?
I think you're understating the danger.
There you go.
First of all, I think he's winning in the polls. But even if he doesn't have the 50% in the polls, because of this ranked voting, even if he finishes second, because of the Democratic electorate, which is predominantly very far left, he will be ranked as second for most folks. So he will eventually, even if he doesn't win in the first ballot, most likely win if things continue this way in the second ballot when they recount it. If he is elected mayor, New York will no longer be safe for Jews. And what do I mean by that? He went to Bowdoin College. He's in his early 30s. He founded the Students for Justice in Palestine chapter at Bowdoin. The SJP is one of the most violent, anti-Semitic, anti-Western groups there is. Just to give you an idea how vile they are, Columbia University on its own, kicked out the SJP. It was even too violent for Columbia. But he supports the riots and the anti-Semitic and the Destroy Israel and the pro-Hamas and the anti-Western protests at Columbia. He supports them. He will not recognize the right of a Jewish state of Israel to exist. He supports the boycott, divest, and sanctions movement. He's a huge social justice DEI supporter who will destroy our schools. As you point out, he's a democratic socialist. He thinks capitalism is evil. He wants a complete government takeover of supermarkets. Look how well that worked for the Soviet Union and Cuba and North Korea. How well fed were these people? How stocked were their supermarkets? He wants rent freezes. He'll destroy the housing market in New York. No landlord will be able to make a living. They'll just abandon their buildings. And basically the entire tax base, or a substantial portion of the tax base, will leave New York, and New York will be destroyed. New York is America's single most important city, both culturally and economically. He will destroy it, and it will be unsafe for the Jews.
Jesse.
But hopefully...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me just finish the one point. Where the hell is Chuck Schumer?
Where is he? Where is he? He's hiding out as he always does.
Well, exactly. And he needs to be called to task. I'm down in Washington, D.C. right now. I met with a couple of Republican senators this morning, and I made it a point to ask each of them to please reach out to Senator Schumer to ask him to make a statement about the Mamdani race. Even if he doesn't want to come out and endorse somebody else, at least come out and say Mamdani is an anti-Semite and he must be stopped. It is his moral obligation. I'm sick and tired of him telling us of how supportive he is of Israel and the Jews. Nothing could be further from the truth. But here is an opportunity for him to do something constructive. But I will also call out the Republican National Committee, a state committee, and the Republican New York City Committee. You must ask Curtis Sliwa to step out of the race. Because if Cuomo loses, Eric Adams is our only choice. And everyone's going to have to rally behind Eric Adams as an independent. There's a role for Republicans right now. Democrats must come out against Mamdani, and Republicans must ask Curtis Sliwa to step aside. So in the event that Mamdani wins, Eric Adams has a viable path to winning.
Yeah, but the problem is, hold on. Andrew has another line.
Yeah, but he's going to be, if he's not on the Democratic line, he's useless. He's not going to win if he's on another line. All he'll do, actually, is split three ways the non-Mamdani vote. So we need him. Well, hopefully Cuomo would bow out too. But at a minimum, Curtis Sliwa, who has no chance of winning, should bow out and endorse Eric Adams as an independent. I can't overemphasize how dangerous this guy is. He will destroy the city and make life unlivable for Jews. And I'm not overstating it.
No, but listen, it's a bigger issue than the Jews. He will destroy the city of New York and all people who are responsible, middle-class, hardworking people who create jobs, the revenue base, give to the charities, the culturals. Everybody will flee, not just the Jews.
Yeah, no, I agree. The tax base will go. Hardworking. You think there's an outflow from an outflow of New Yorkers now? If this guy wins, it's going to be a ghost town. I can't overstate it, and it really requires some grown-ups to get in there, like Chuck Schumer. And I call on the New York State Republican Committee and the New York City Republican Committee to act responsibly and get Sliwa out of the way, so that there is an alternative, a viable alternative to beating him in the off chance that he wins the Democratic nomination.
Jesse.
We used the phrase race to the bottom earlier. We were talking about two blue state governors of New York and California. This may rival that with the race to the bottom here in the city of New York and the state of New York, with Andrew Cuomo being in one place and Megami being in another contender for this office. To answer, to the call that Eric put out, if you think Chuck Schumer is going to do anything for anyone other than himself first and dive back into, antagonizing the left progressives in the city of New York after the damage he continues to delve in with his vote on the debt ceiling, I think it's gonna snow in the Sahara Desert faster than that will happen, because he is one self-serving, narcissistic person that only cares not about his people, his state, just his political fortunes. I think we have to see where everything works out as this primary goes forward, but it is dangerous. I mean, for this individual who, if he does ascend to the position of mayor of the city of New York, will be worse for the people of the city of New York, the people of the state of New York, and the greater region here as well. For all of us here on Long Island and Westchester and in the upper states like Westchester and Orange and Rockland that work in the city or have investments in the city with their businesses, this is somewhere that they are definitely, the word flee, it's going to be run and run quick from these individuals, because that's going to be worse than the mayor of Chicago, Johnson.
Well,
I'm not saying that Chuck Schumer will do this. I'm saying that people should be calling him out to do this. And maybe, there's such things as God parted the Red Sea. Maybe he can get Chuck Schumer to do something.
I mean, the problem is a national. Well, hold on 1 second. This is very important that our listeners understand this. This is not just about New York City. New York City is the economic engine, the cultural engine of America. And to lose New York, you're talking about losing America.
Yeah.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
It's a real privilege to be able to travel and to see different places, taking yourself out of comfortable positions and challenging yourself.
No one builds a legacy by standing still. Start your journey at remova.com.
You need a vacation, so why not come play in LA? Fill your days with fun and let Los Angeles dazzle you with iconic landmarks, epic scenery, and stunning coastlines. And when the sun goes down, it's the perfect place to enjoy world-class dining and nightlife. Let play lead the way and soak up all this city has to offer. Start planning your LA getaway now at visitcalifornia.com.
This episode is brought to you by SelectQuote. Life insurance can have a huge impact on our family's future. With SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is simple and affordable. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents will tailor your experience to find a life insurance policy for your needs in as little as 15 minutes. And SelectQuote partners with carriers that provide policies for many conditions. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Go to SelectQuote.com/SpotifyPod today to get started.
Agreed. I mean, the danger could not be more palpable, more obvious.
Can you imagine that these are our choices? Andrew Cuomo, and has got 32-year-old aristocrat, rich guy who claims to be someone of little means, Magdami, who's basically, and this is the problem, is that the other problem here is the Working Families Party, who wants to do everything and anything to prevent a Curtis Lewa, a Republican, a Mayor Adams, and a Cuomo from ascending to the mayoral position, that they will back anyone and anything that will serve their very progressive means. And it's going to be to the destruction of their own members, because there's not going to be anyone in the city of New York to fit the bill any longer. That's a big, huge problem here. And the fact that this guy McDonough is actually promising everything, every government giveaway that you can possibly even imagine or create in a science fiction story, the fact that the voters are falling for that, and they think that someone's going to be able to pay for it, is beyond the realm of possibilities or reality.
I don't think this can't happen. Look at Detroit in the 1960s. After the riots in Detroit and some very bad policies in Detroit, literally roughly 50% of Detroit's tax base left. The city has still not recovered.
And may never recover. It's absolutely a frightening prospect. I want to switch gears, gentlemen, about another frightening prospect. It's actually two issues. Iran, as we talked about last week, Iran is getting more and more perilously close to having nuclear weaponry. And Trump has said again, and he was interviewed by Miranda Devine of the New York Post just a day ago at the White House, and he's once again said they will never have a nuclear weapon. So the question becomes, how are you going to stop them? I always believe that any deal that they make is unenforceable, it's unrealistic, and they're liars, they're cheaters, they will do whatever they can. They'll promise you the world, give you nothing. We let them off the hook with sanctions. We give them money. It doesn't matter. They're dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. They're an Islamist fundamentalist cult. It's a death cult. They want domination of their worldview. It's not just destroying the state of Israel. It moves on to controlling all of the Middle East, taking over Europe and taking over the United States. This is dangerous stuff. So now the reports are that if there's no resolution, whatever that resolution would be, Israel is preparing now to launch an attack against Iran's nuclear facilities with or without the support of the United States. Eric, what are your thoughts about this?
I mean, look, you have to remember who the Iran regime is. There's a lead article on the front page of the New York Times today that frames it as Trump is facing the same dilemma of Barack Obama, and it's either allow them to have nuclear enrichment or war. That's a lie. That's a false choice. This regime has been at war with the United States since 1979 when it came into existence. It took 60 Americans hostage and held them 444 days. They blew up and murdered 241 Marines in the Beirut barracks during the Reagan administration. They killed over 20 Americans in the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia during the Reagan administration. They started the tanker wars and attacked American ships in the Gulf. Reagan sank half their fleet. That stopped. And they are responsible for one third of the Americans dead and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan. And they've been attacking American service members, one of whom was my son in 2018, 2019, in Syria and Iraq. He was there fighting in Syria, fighting ISIS in 2018, 2019, and subject to terrorist attacks from Iran. Iran has been at war with us since 1979. This will not start a war. This will end the war. The only question has been why America has not fought back, why America has not attacked a country that's been killing its citizens and service members for over 40 years, and it seems to get some sort of impunity for some reason. So that's a line of false choice that the New York Times lays out for us. In terms of Israel going along, that would be regrettable. We should be doing it with them. It's in America's national security interest to attack this regime. At the end of the day, we really need regime change, but at a minimum, this regime cannot have a nuclear weapon, and it can't have any enrichment or centrifuges whatsoever. And why? Why absolutely zero? Because if they have any, all they will do is wait out this administration and wait till there's a neo-isolationist Republican president who won't care if they have a nuclear weapon, or a Democrat who won't care if they have a nuclear weapon. And then they will win. And then they will have a nuclear weapon, and the world will be changed for the worse forever. So there can be absolutely no enrichment whatsoever. And the only way to ensure that there is no enrichment, because they will cheat no matter what deal they make, is to destroy their nuclear infrastructure. And if that isn't enough to make them stop, then it's time to take out their oil refineries. Because that was something like 80 to 90% of their gross national product comes from selling oil to China and to India. That needs to stop. That needs to stop. And this regime, we really need regime change. But the most effective path is a joint American-Israeli attack on the infrastructure of their nuclear program. And at a minimum, if we're not going to do it, we need to get out of the way and let the Israelis do it and give them as much help and support as they need.
Well, we have to sign off. I just got the signal from the booth. I want to thank my co-host, Jesse Garcia, the vice chair of the State Republican Party and county chair of the Suffolk Party, and Eric Levine, noted commentator, attorney, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Thank you for listening. God bless you. God bless your families. Of course, God bless America. We look forward to being with you again next week on Let the Record Show. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Hey, Mama, you don't have time to be messing around endlessly scrolling to find a caregiver for your child. Let me clue you into my trick to save time and my sanity when finding a sitter. SitterCity.com. SitterCity knows what they're doing. They've been helping busy parents find the perfect sitter for over 20 years. While other sites overwhelm you by throwing hundreds of random profiles your way, SitterCity matches you with caregivers who actually fit your needs. No endless scrolling, no guesswork. I love that all caregivers undergo ID verification. They have background checks, specialized qualifications, and real parent reviews to know if they showed up on time or really know how to handle my sassy toddler. And if I need help, I can talk to a real live human, not a robot, with SitterCity's delightful team. You know, my employer pays for me to get SitterCity completely free as part of my benefits. Yours could too. SitterCity is my go-to for a smarter, simpler way to find reliable, trustworthy care. Don't wait. Go to SitterCity.com/XX and get the help you need.